I pulled into the driveway of my childhood home, expecting the usual chaos of Thanksgiving dinner. The maple tree in the front yard had turned brilliant orange, just like every November since I was 5 years old. But something felt different when I stepped out of my Honda Civic. My father stood in the doorway with his arms crossed, blocking the entrance like a bouncer at an exclusive club. My mother lingered beside him, mascara streaking down her cheeks. "You're not invited. Go home." Dad said, his voice colder than the Michigan wind cutting through my jacket. Through the dining room window, I could see my sister Emma laughing with Uncle Derek and my best friend Marcus around the polished oak table. The smell of roasted turkey drifted through the air, mixed with something much more bitter. Standing on the front porch, where I'd taken countless family photos, I felt like I was watching someone else's nightmare unfold. The porch swing, where Mom used to read me bedtime stories, creaked in the wind, a haunting soundtrack to this surreal confrontation. "What are you talking about?" I asked, my voice cracking despite my 28 years. "It's Thanksgiving. We've had dinner together every year since I was born." Dad's jaw tightened, the same expression he wore when he'd caught me breaking windows with baseballs as a kid. But this wasn't about broken glass or childhood mischief. This was something darker, something that had transformed the man who taught me to ride a bike into a stranger guarding his fortress against his own son. "Don't play innocent with us, Jaws," Mom whispered, using the nickname she'd given me after I'd lost 3 teeth in 1 week at age 7. Hearing it now felt like a knife twisting in my chest. "We know what you did to the family business. We know about the money. The family business. Henderson Construction had been in our family for 3 generations, built by my grandfather's calloused hands and sustained by Dad's relentless work ethic. I'd been the company's financial analyst for 2 years, working 60-hour weeks to modernize their accounting systems and expand their commercial contracts. What money?" I demanded, stepping closer to the door. "I've never touched a penny that wasn't mine. You know that." Emma appeared behind our parents, her blonde hair perfectly styled, despite the emotional hurricane swirling through our home. She'd always been the golden child, the one who could do no wrong in our parents' eyes. Now she looked at me with a mixture of disgust and satisfaction that made my stomach churn. "Stop lying," she spat, producing a manila folder thick with documents. "Marcus showed us everything. Bank statements, transfer records, all of it. $300,000 Jaws. $300,000 stolen from the company over 6 months. I stared at the papers in her hands, my mind racing to process what she was saying. 3 months ago, I'd discovered discrepancies in our quarterly audit. Money was definitely missing, but I'd reported it immediately to our external auditor and recommended a full investigation. The trail had led to irregularities in vendor payments and expense reports, but we'd never identified the culprit. "Emma, I'm the one who reported the missing money," I said, my voice rising. "I'm the one who called for the investigation. Why would I steal money and then expose the theft?" Uncle Derek stepped into view, his massive frame filling the doorway beside my parents. At 6 feet 4 inches and 250 pounds, Derek had always been the family's enforcer, the one who settled disputes with his presence rather than words. Seeing him aligned against me felt like losing a war before the first battle. "Because you got greedy." Derek rumbled his voice, carrying the authority of someone who'd built his own construction empire from nothing. "The external audit was closing in, so you tried to cover your tracks by playing the whistleblower. Classic misdirection." The accusations hit me like physical blows. These weren't strangers making wild claims. This was my family. The people who'd celebrated my college graduation, cheered at my promotion, supported me through every triumph and failure of my adult life. Now they stood united against me, armed with evidence I'd never seen and conclusions I couldn't understand. "Let me see those documents," I said, reaching for the folder. Emma pulled it away from my grasp. "You've seen them before. Your signatures are all over the transfer authorizations. My signatures." The words came out as a whisper. "Emma, I never signed any unauthorized transfers. Whatever you're looking at, it's not legitimate." That's when Marcus appeared in the doorway, stepping around my family with the easy confidence of someone who belonged. Marcus Patterson had been my best friend since elementary school, the best man at my brother's wedding, the person I'd trusted with my deepest secrets and biggest dreams. We'd built tree houses together, chased the same girls in high school, and spent countless weekends fishing at Lake Huron. Now he looked at me with a smile that didn't reach his eyes, the same smile I'd seen him use on clients when he was about to close a difficult sale. "Hey, buddy," he said, his tone dripping with false sympathy. "I really didn't want it to come out this way. I tried to handle it quietly, but your family deserved to know the truth." "What truth?" I shouted, my composure finally cracking. "Marcus, you know I didn't steal anything. You know I'd never hurt this family." His smile widened, revealing teeth that seemed sharper than I remembered. "Actually, Jaws, there's something else your family should know. Emma and I have been dating for 6 months now. We're in love and we're planning to get married next spring." The world tilted on its axis. Emma moved to Marcus's side, threading her arm through his with practiced ease. The gesture was intimate, familiar, natural, in a way that spoke of months of hidden relationship building. They looked like a couple comfortable in each other's space, united in their purpose. 6 months. I stared at my sister, searching for any sign of the little girl who used to braid friendship bracelets for me during summer camp. "Emma, why didn't you tell me why all the secrecy?" "Because Marcus knew you'd try to sabotage our relationship," she said, her voice gaining strength. "He warned me that you'd become jealous and possessive once you realized I'd found someone who actually cares about my happiness." The manipulation was breathtaking in its sophistication. Marcus had somehow convinced my sister that I was both a thief and a threat to her romantic future. He'd positioned himself as her protector while painting me as the villain in a story I didn't even know was being written. "This is insane," I said, looking from face to face, searching for any crack in their unified front. "Marcus, we've been friends for 20 years. You know who I am? You know I'd never steal from my own family?" Marcus stepped closer, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper that only I could hear. "Actually, buddy, I know exactly who you are. And now so does everyone else. Funny how things work out, isn't it?" The words hit me like ice water. There was something in his tone, something calculating and cold, that I'd never heard before. This wasn't the Marcus who'd helped me change my first flat tire or stayed up all night helping me study for my CPA exam. This was someone else entirely, someone wearing my best friend's face like a mask. The realization crashed over me with devastating clarity. This wasn't a misunderstanding or a case of mistaken identity. This was a deliberate, coordinated attack designed to destroy my relationship with my family and eliminate me from their lives. The only question was why. I sat in my car for 10 minutes, staring at the house where I'd grown up, watching the warm glow of the dining room windows, where my family was enjoying Thanksgiving dinner without me. The irony wasn't lost on me that I was now the outsider looking in exactly where Marcus had apparently wanted me all along. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. "Don't try to contact any of us. We've all agreed that we're done with your lies and manipulation. Maybe someday you'll get the help you need, but until then, stay away from our family. Our family." The phrase stung more than any physical blow could have. In the span of 30 minutes, I'd been excommunicated from the only support system I'd ever known, branded as a criminal and a threat to their well-being. But I wasn't going down without a fight. I scrolled through my contacts and found Tyler Morrison, my roommate from Northwestern University, who'd gone on to become a forensic accountant in Chicago. Tyler specialized in white-collar crime investigations, helping law firms and corporations untangle complex financial fraud cases. If anyone could help me understand what was happening, it was him. "Jaws!" Tyler's voice boomed through the speaker, accompanied by the sounds of his own family gathering. "Happy Thanksgiving, brother. How's the Henderson clan treating you?" "Tyler, I need your help," I said, my voice barely steady. "Something terrible has happened, and I don't know where else to turn." The background noise on Tyler's end diminished as he moved to a quieter location. "Talk to me. What's going on?" I explained the entire confrontation from the blocked doorway to the accusations about stolen money to Marcus's revelation about dating Emma. Tyler listened without interruption, his silence growing more ominous as the details piled up. "This sounds like a professional setup," he said finally. "The forged documents, the coordinated family intervention, the romantic manipulation of your sister. Someone with serious financial crime experience designed this operation." "But why would Marcus do this to me?" I asked. "We've been best friends since we were kids. I was the best man at his brother's wedding. I helped him get his job at the investment firm. What could possibly motivate him to destroy my life?" "Money," Tyler said without hesitation. "It's always about money. The question is whether he's trying to steal from your family business, eliminate you as competition for some opportunity, or cover up his own criminal activity by making you the fall guy." Tyler's clinical analysis helped cut through the emotional fog clouding my judgment. This wasn't about friendship or family loyalty. This was about crime, and crime always had logical motives and discoverable evidence. "Can you help me investigate the documents Emma showed me?" I asked. "I never got a close look at them, but if they're claiming I authorized $300,000 in transfers, there should be a paper trail we can analyze." "Absolutely. But I need you to be prepared for what we might find. If Marcus has been planning this for months, the forgeries could be sophisticated enough to fool your family, but sloppy enough for a professional to spot. The question is whether we can gather enough evidence to prove your innocence before he disappears with whatever he's stolen." Tyler paused, and I could hear him thinking through the implications. "Jaws, there's something else you need to consider. If Marcus has access to your family's financial systems, and he's desperate enough to orchestrate this kind of frame job, he might be in serious trouble himself. People don't usually burn 20-year friendships unless they're facing something catastrophic." An hour later, my phone rang with Tyler's return call. The speed of his callback told me he'd found something significant. "Jaws, you need to sit down for this," he said, his voice tight with controlled excitement. "I called in some favors with contacts at the major banks and ran Marcus Patterson through our fraud detection databases. Your friend has been very busy over the past 2 years. What did you find?" "Marcus has opened 17 different bank accounts across 6 states, all under variations of his name or shell companies he's created. The money flows are complex, but I can trace approximately $800,000 moving through these accounts over the past 18 months. Most of it came from business accounts belonging to small construction companies and family-owned enterprises in the Midwest." My blood turned to ice. "Are you saying Marcus has been running a systematic fraud operation?" "That's exactly what I'm saying. And it gets worse. I found records of cash withdrawals totaling $300,000 from casinos in Detroit, Atlantic City, and Las Vegas. Your friend has a serious gambling problem, and he's been funding it by embezzling from businesses that trust him with their financial information." The pieces began falling into place. Marcus worked as a financial consultant for small businesses, helping them modernize their accounting systems and optimize their tax strategies. It was the perfect cover for someone looking to identify vulnerable targets and gain access to their financial controls. "Tyler, if Marcus stole $300,000 from our family business, why is he trying to frame me instead of just disappearing?" "Because he stole a lot more than $300,000, Tyler said grimly. "Based on what I'm seeing, he's taken nearly $2 million from various clients over the past 2 years. The heat is closing in, and he needs someone to take the fall for all of it. By framing you for one theft, he can claim that you were the one running the entire operation, and he was just another victim." My phone buzzed with an incoming text as Tyler continued his explanation. Then another. Then a flood of messages that made my phone vibrate continuously against the dashboard. Tyler, I'm getting bombarded with text messages. Let me call you back. I opened my phone to find dozens of messages from family members, family friends, business associates, and people I hadn't spoken to in years. Word of my supposed theft had spread through our tight-knit community like wildfire. Uncle Derek. I can't believe you'd steal from your own family. Your grandfather would be ashamed. My cousin Sarah. Mom told me what you did to Uncle James's business. How could you betray people who love you? My high school football coach. Heard about the trouble you're in, son. Hope you get the help you need. Mrs. Patterson, Marcus's own mother, I'm so disappointed in you, Jaws. Marcus is heartbroken that his best friend turned out to be a criminal. The messages kept coming, each one a dagger to my reputation and my sense of identity. Someone had systematically contacted everyone in my personal and professional network, spreading a carefully crafted narrative about my supposed crimes. This wasn't just about framing me for one theft. This was about destroying my entire life, making it impossible for me to rebuild, even if I eventually proved my innocence. But it was the final message that made my hands shake with rage. Marcus. I'm sorry it had to come to this, buddy. I really hoped you'd confess and get help before we had to involve the whole family. Emma and I are here for you if you're ready to admit what you've done and start making amends. The first step is acknowledging that you have a problem. The audacity was breathtaking. Marcus was positioning himself as my concerned friend, offering support and forgiveness for crimes he had committed himself. He'd turned my own family against me and then offered to help me through the crisis he'd created. But Tyler's investigation had given me something Marcus didn't know I had: hope. For the first time since being turned away from my family's door, I had evidence that I was being manipulated by a career criminal who'd been planning this destruction for months. I called Tyler back, my voice steadier than it had been all day. Tyler, we need to move fast. Marcus just sent me a text positioning himself as my supportive friend who wants to help me through my confession and recovery. He's not just framing me. He's building a public record of his own innocence and concern for my well-being. Smart, Tyler admitted grudgingly. If this goes to court, he can point to documented evidence of him trying to help you rather than destroy you. He's thinking several moves ahead. Can we beat him at his own game? Tyler was quiet for a long moment. Maybe. But we're going to need more than bank records and suspicious patterns. We need proof that he forged your signatures, evidence that he's been gambling with stolen money, and documentation of his other victims. Most importantly, we need to figure out why he chose now to frame you, and whether there's an immediate threat that forced his hand. As if in response to Tyler's question, my phone rang with a call from an unknown number. I almost declined it, but something made me answer. Is this Jaws Henderson? The voice was gravelly unfamiliar and carried the weight of someone accustomed to being taken seriously. Who's asking? Name's Vincent Caruso. I think you and I need to have a conversation about your friend Marcus Patterson. He owes me a considerable amount of money, and he's been telling me some interesting stories about your family's business assets. My blood turned to ice. Marcus hadn't just stolen money to fund his gambling addiction. He'd borrowed money from dangerous people, and now they were coming to collect from anyone connected to his financial schemes. I don't know what Marcus told you, but I don't have anything to do with his debts. I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Vincent chuckled, a sound like gravel in a cement mixer. That's not what he told me, son. According to Marcus, you and your family's construction company are very much involved in his business arrangements. In fact, he's offered your family business as collateral for his outstanding obligations. The phone call ended, leaving me staring at the dark windows of my Honda Civic, while my entire world collapsed around me. Marcus hadn't just framed me for theft and turned my family against me. He'd put them in physical danger by using their business as collateral for debts to criminals. Everything I thought I understood about this situation had just changed. This wasn't just about clearing my name anymore. This was about protecting my family from threats they didn't even know existed, even if they currently hated me for crimes I didn't commit. The war Marcus had started was about to escalate in ways he never anticipated. Tyler caught the first flight out of Chicago the next morning, arriving at Detroit Metro Airport with a black briefcase that looked like something from a spy movie. We met at a Denny's near the airport, far enough from my hometown to avoid any chance encounters with family members or their allies. Before we dive into what I found, you need to understand the scope of what we're dealing with, Tyler said, spreading documents across the sticky table. This isn't just about Marcus stealing money or framing you for theft. This is about a systematic long-term operation designed to infiltrate and exploit multiple family businesses across the region. He opened a manila folder containing bank statements, property records, and business filings that painted a picture far more disturbing than I'd imagined. Marcus hadn't stumbled into criminal behavior because of gambling addiction. He'd been operating as a professional predator for years, targeting family-owned businesses with specific characteristics that made them vulnerable to financial manipulation. Look at this pattern, Tyler said, pointing to a spreadsheet he'd created. Over the past 3 years, Marcus has provided financial consulting services to 11 family businesses in Michigan, Ohio, and Indiana. All of them are second- or third-generation companies with aging founders, adult children, involved in management and substantial assets, but relatively unsophisticated financial controls. I studied the list, recognizing several company names from local business networking events. Henderson Construction was just one target in a carefully curated portfolio of potential victims. But Tyler, Marcus and I have been friends since elementary school. How could he have been planning this for 3 years when he's known my family his entire life? Tyler's expression grew grim as he pulled out another set of documents. That's where it gets really disturbing. I did some digging into Marcus's background, and there are some gaps in his personal history that don't add up. He showed me a timeline he'd constructed of Marcus's life, highlighting periods where official records were sparse or contradictory. Marcus Patterson graduated from Michigan State with a degree in finance, but there's no record of him attending classes or living on campus during his junior year. His student loans were paid by a company that doesn't appear to exist anymore. His first job after graduation was with an investment firm that was shut down by federal regulators for securities fraud. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. Are you saying Marcus has been involved in financial crimes since college? I'm saying Marcus Patterson might not even be his real name, Tyler replied. The social security number he's been using belongs to a child who died in a car accident in 1987. His driver's license was issued using falsified birth records. Your childhood friend might be someone else entirely, someone who assumed the identity of the real Marcus Patterson and has been living in your community specifically to identify and exploit targets like your family. I stared at the documents, my mind struggling to process the implications. Every shared memory from our childhood, every moment of genuine friendship I thought we'd experienced, might have been part of an elaborate deception spanning decades. But we went to elementary school together, I protested. There are yearbook photos, teacher records, other classmates who remember him. Tyler nodded sympathetically. Identity assumption works best when you target someone from a community you actually lived in as a child. The real Marcus Patterson probably was your elementary school classmate. But the person you've been calling your best friend for the past 15 years might be someone else who studied his life and took over his identity when the real Marcus died or disappeared. He pulled out a photograph from his briefcase, a grainy image that looked like it had been taken from a surveillance camera. This photo was taken at a casino in Las Vegas 6 months ago. The man in the center is using Marcus Patterson's credit cards and identification, but look at his companions. I studied the image, recognizing Marcus's profile, but not the dangerous-looking men flanking him at a poker table. They looked like characters from a crime movie, the kind of people who settled debts with violence rather than lawsuits. Vincent Caruso, Tyler said, pointing to a heavyset man with graying hair and expensive jewelry. He runs a loan shark operation out of Detroit, but he's sophisticated enough to make most of his business look legitimate. He owns restaurants, construction companies, and financial services firms that serve as fronts for money laundering and high-interest lending to desperate gamblers. The phone call from the previous evening suddenly made perfect sense. Marcus hadn't just borrowed money from dangerous people. He'd become entangled with an organized crime operation that viewed my family's business as a recoverable asset. Tyler, if Marcus is working with people like this, my family is in immediate physical danger. Vincent Caruso doesn't strike me as someone who accepts bankruptcy as an excuse for non-payment. That's why we need to move fast, Tyler agreed. But there's more you need to know about the scope of this operation. He opened his laptop and showed me a complex financial diagram mapping money flows between dozens of accounts, shell companies, and business entities. Marcus hasn't been working alone. This operation requires sophisticated knowledge of banking regulations, business law, and identity theft techniques. Vincent Caruso's organization has been running this scheme in multiple states, using people like Marcus to infiltrate communities and identify targets. How many families has he destroyed? Based on what I can document, at least 30 families over the past 5 years have lost their businesses or suffered major financial losses after hiring consultants connected to Caruso's network. The pattern is always the same. Establish trust gain, access to financial systems, steal systematically over months or years, then frame someone else for the crimes while the actual perpetrator disappears into a new identity. Tyler's investigation had revealed a criminal enterprise far more extensive and dangerous than a simple case of embezzlement. My family wasn't just dealing with a gambling addict who'd made desperate choices. We were confronting an organized crime operation that had been planning our destruction for years. There's something else, Tyler said, his voice dropping to a whisper. I found security footage from a camera system near your family's house. Marcus has been entering your childhood home regularly for the past 3 months, always when your parents are away. Emma gave him a key, but he's been using it for more than romantic rendezvous. He showed me time-stamped footage of Marcus entering through the back door carrying a briefcase and wearing latex gloves. The images showed him moving through the house with purpose, spending time in Dad's home office and my old bedroom. He's been planting evidence, I realized. The bank statements Emma showed me the transfer authorizations with my forged signature. He's been setting up the frame job for months, building a case against me piece by piece. And here's the most disturbing part, Tyler said, pointing to a particular timestamp. This footage was taken 3 days before Thanksgiving. Marcus knew exactly when your family was going to confront you, because he planned the entire timeline. The evidence, the family meeting, Emma's emotional support, even the dinner invitation that brought you to the house at the perfect moment for maximum psychological impact. The sophistication of the manipulation was breathtaking. Marcus hadn't just committed financial crimes. He'd orchestrated a psychological warfare campaign designed to destroy my relationship with my family, while positioning himself as their protector and new family member. Tyler, we have enough evidence to prove Marcus is a criminal and that I've been framed. But how do we protect my family from Vincent Caruso's organization? Even if we expose Marcus, the people he owes money to won't just disappear. Tyler closed his laptop and looked me directly in the eyes. We're going to need help from law enforcement. But before we contact the FBI, we need to gather enough evidence to bring down the entire operation. If we just expose Marcus, Vincent will find another way to collect what he's owed, and your family will still be in danger. What do you have in mind? We're going to set a trap, Tyler said with a grim smile. Marcus thinks he's won, but he doesn't know that we've uncovered his real identity and his connections to organized crime. We're going to use his overconfidence against him and get him to confess to crimes that will put him away for decades while simultaneously giving the FBI everything they need to dismantle Vincent Caruso's entire network. The plan Tyler outlined was dangerous, complex, and required perfect timing. But for the first time since being turned away from my family's Thanksgiving dinner, I felt like we had a chance to not only clear my name, but also protect the people I loved from threats they didn't even know existed. The war Marcus had started was about to turn in our favor, but first we had to survive the battle that was coming. The coffee shop Marcus chose for our meeting was perfect for his purposes, and even better for ours. The daily grind sat in a strip mall between Emma's apartment complex and the community college, a neutral location where he could feel confident and in control. What Marcus didn't know was that Tyler had arrived 2 hours early to set up surveillance equipment and coordinate with the FBI agents who were monitoring the situation from unmarked vehicles in the parking lot. I wore a wire taped to my chest, hidden beneath a Michigan State sweatshirt that Marcus would recognize as a sentimental favorite from our college days. The irony wasn't lost on me that I was using our shared history as camouflage for the operation that would expose his true nature. Marcus arrived 15 minutes late, a power play designed to reinforce his position of dominance. He looked relaxed, almost cheerful, like someone who'd just resolved a difficult situation to his complete satisfaction. His confidence would be his downfall. "Jaws," he said, extending his hand for a shake as if we were meeting for a casual catch-up session. "Thanks for agreeing to meet. I know yesterday was tough for everyone, but I think it's important that we handle this situation like adults." I shook his hand, noting the expensive watch he was wearing, and the designer jacket that cost more than most people's monthly salary. For someone concerned about a friend's criminal behavior, Marcus was certainly enjoying the financial benefits of his supposed discoveries. "Marcus, we need to talk about what happened yesterday," I said, following the script Tyler and I had rehearsed. "My family thinks I stole $300,000, but you know that's not true. You know I'd never hurt them." His smile never wavered, but something shifted in his eyes, a calculation that reminded me of a predator evaluating wounded prey. "Actually, buddy, I know exactly what happened. The evidence is pretty clear, and I think the best thing for everyone is if you admit what you've done and start working on making amends." "What evidence?" I pressed. "I've never seen these bank statements Emma was talking about. I've never authorized any transfers. How can there be evidence of something that never happened?" Marcus leaned back in his chair, his confidence growing with each denial I offered. "Jaws, the FBI forensic accountants, are very thorough. When they examined your computer and financial records, they found a very clear pattern of systematic theft stretching back over 18 months. Your digital signature is on dozens of transfer authorizations, and the money trail leads directly to accounts under your control. The detail was impressive and terrifying. Marcus had clearly spent months creating a comprehensive false narrative, complete with forged digital evidence and fabricated financial records. If Tyler hadn't uncovered the truth, I might have been convinced of my own guilt. "Marcus, you've been my best friend for 20 years, I said, allowing genuine emotion to creep into my voice. "If you really believe I'm capable of stealing from my own family, then you don't know me at all." "That's the thing about addiction," Marcus replied smoothly. "It changes people in ways their friends and family never expect. Gambling addiction specifically can drive otherwise honest people to commit crimes they never imagined themselves capable of." The accusation hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Marcus was now claiming that I was a gambling addict, adding another layer to his fabricated narrative. The sophistication of his lies was remarkable, but it was also his weakness. Each lie required him to remember and maintain an increasingly complex web of deception. Gambling addiction. I laughed, hoping the sound came across as genuine rather than forced. "Marcus, you know I've never even bought a lottery ticket. When have you ever seen me gamble?" "People hide their addictions," he said, his tone shifting to something resembling concern. "But I found records of your trips to casinos in Detroit and Atlantic City. Large cash withdrawals, hotel receipts, even photographs of you at poker tables. The evidence is overwhelming." Tyler had prepared me for this moment. Marcus was describing his own gambling activities but attributing them to me using the same technique identity thieves employed to confuse investigations. The key was to let him continue building his false narrative while secretly recording every detail. "That's impossible," I said, shaking my head in apparent confusion. "I've never been to Atlantic City in my life. You know that. We've talked about taking a trip there together, but we never actually went." Marcus's eyes flickered with something that might have been annoyance. "Actually, we did go together. Last spring, remember, you insisted on going to the high-stakes poker games even though I warned you that you were getting in over your head." The lie was bold and completely fabricated, but it served a purpose. Marcus was now on record claiming that he'd witnessed my supposed gambling addiction firsthand, positioning himself as someone who'd tried to help me overcome my destructive behavior. Marcus, this is crazy, I said, standing up as if to leave. I don't know why you're lying about this, but I'm not going to sit here and listen to accusations that we both know are false. Sit down, Marcus said, his mask of concern slipping just slightly. We're not done talking. The shift in his tone was subtle, but unmistakable. For just a moment, the friendly facade dropped, and I caught a glimpse of the predator beneath. Tyler had been right. Marcus was someone else entirely, someone who'd been playing a role for years while planning my family's destruction. I sat back down, pretending to be intimidated by his sudden authority. What else do you want to say? Marcus leaned forward, lowering his voice to a conspiratorial whisper. Jaws, there are people involved in this situation who don't have your family's best interests at heart. The money you stole wasn't just sitting in a bank account. It was promised to some very serious individuals who don't accept excuses or payment delays. The confession was exactly what Tyler and the FBI needed. Marcus was now admitting that the stolen money was connected to dangerous third parties, linking himself to the criminal conspiracy we'd uncovered. What are you talking about? I asked, allowing fear to creep into my voice. What people? Let's just say that Vincent Caruso isn't the kind of person who forgets about debts. Marcus said, his confidence returning as he interpreted my fear as genuine rather than performance. He's been very patient, but his patience has limits. If the money isn't returned soon, he's going to start collecting from other family assets. The threat was explicit and recorded. Marcus had just confessed to involving my family in a debt arrangement with a known criminal, using their business as collateral without their knowledge or consent. Marcus, how do you even know Vincent Caruso? I asked, pushing for more details. And what does any of this have to do with my family's business? Marcus smiled, the expression cold and calculating. I know Vincent because I've been working with him for 3 years, identifying businesses with sufficient assets to serve as collateral for high-interest loans. Your family's construction company was always the prize target, but I needed time to gain their trust and access their financial systems. The admission was comprehensive and damning. Marcus had just confessed to being part of a criminal conspiracy, using his relationship with my family to facilitate organized crime activities. So you've been lying to me for 3 years? I asked, my voice rising with apparent shock and betrayal. I've been lying to you for a lot longer than that. Marcus laughed, the sound devoid of any warmth or friendship. Did you really think it was a coincidence that I moved back to town, right when your family's business started expanding? Did you think it was luck that I happened to specialize in exactly the kind of financial consulting your father needed? The confession continued, each word another nail in the coffin of his defense. Tyler and the FBI were recording a career criminal admitting to years of premeditated fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy. But Marcus wasn't finished. The best part is that your family actually believes I'm protecting them from you. Emma thinks I'm her knight in shining armor, rescuing her from a criminal brother. Your parents think I'm the son they wish they'd had, someone trustworthy and reliable who would never steal from the people who love him. His satisfaction was evident, the pleasure of a predator who'd successfully deceived his prey for years. But that satisfaction was about to become his greatest vulnerability. Marcus, I said quietly, there's something you should know. What's that, buddy? I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone, holding it up so he could see the active recording app on the screen. I've been recording this entire conversation, and those aren't just random people sitting in the parking lot. They're FBI agents who've been investigating Vincent Caruso's organization for 2 years. Marcus's face went white as the implications crashed over him. The confident predator vanished, replaced by a cornered animal, realizing the trap had already closed around him. You're bluffing, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. I gestured toward the window where Tyler was standing next to a black SUV, speaking into a radio. Tyler Morrison, forensic accountant with the Chicago FBI field office. He flew in yesterday to coordinate this operation after uncovering your real identity and your connections to organized crime. Marcus lunged for my phone, but it was too late. The confession was already uploaded to secure FBI servers, and backup recordings were running on equipment hidden throughout the coffee shop. You have no idea what you've done! Marcus snarled, his friendly mask completely abandoned. Vincent Caruso doesn't forget, and he doesn't forgive. Even if you've recorded me confessing, he's still going to collect what he's owed from your family's assets. Actually, I said, standing up as FBI agents entered the coffee shop from multiple directions. Vincent Caruso was arrested this morning along with 15 members of his organization. Your confession was the final piece of evidence they needed to secure federal racketeering charges against the entire network. Marcus's world collapsed in real time as he realized that his elaborate scheme had not only failed, but had provided law enforcement with everything they needed to dismantle the criminal enterprise he'd been part of for years. Agent Sarah Chen approached our table, her badge clearly visible, and her expression professionally stern. Marcus Patterson, also known as Michael Reynolds, also known as David Thompson. You're under arrest for fraud, racketeering, identity theft, and conspiracy to commit organized crime. As the handcuffs clicked around Marcus's wrists, he looked at me with a mixture of rage and something that might have been respect. You always were smarter than I gave you credit for, Jaws. I just wish you'd used that intelligence to mind your own business. The operation was over, but the real work was just beginning. Now I had to convince my family that everything they believed about me was based on lies, and everything they believed about Marcus was a carefully constructed deception designed to destroy their lives. The war was won, but the battle for my family's trust was about to begin. The arrest of Marcus should have been the end of the nightmare, but it was actually just the beginning of a more dangerous phase. 3 hours after the coffee shop confrontation, as I was giving my statement at the FBI field office in Detroit, Agent Chen received a phone call that changed everything. Vincent Caruso's arrest didn't go as smoothly as we hoped, she told me, hanging up her cell phone with a grim expression. 2 of his top lieutenants escaped the raid, and they've made it clear that they consider your family responsible for the collapse of their money laundering operation. The implications hit me like a physical blow. Even though we'd proven my innocence and exposed Marcus's crimes, the dangerous people he'd been working with weren't going to simply write off their losses and disappear. They viewed my family's construction business as an asset that could still be liquidated to recover their investments. What kind of immediate threat are we talking about? I asked, my mind racing through the safety implications for my parents, Emma and Uncle Derek. Agent Chen pulled out a manila folder containing surveillance photos and intelligence reports. Vincent's organization operated as a sophisticated financial network, but enforcement was always handled through intimidation and violence. The 2 men who escaped, Tony Ricci and Carlo Mendoza, are specialists in debt recovery and asset forfeiture. They've been known to burn down businesses, threaten family members, and use kidnapping to motivate compliance. She showed me photos of 2 men who looked like they'd stepped out of a crime movie. Tony Ricci was a compact, muscular man with scarred hands and dead eyes. Carlo Mendoza was taller, leaner, with the kind of calm expression that suggested violence was just another business tool. How much time do we have before they make their move? I asked. Unknown, Agent Chen replied. But our intelligence suggests they're already in the area. A rental car matching the description of their vehicle was spotted near your family's neighborhood this morning. The FBI's protection capabilities were limited by jurisdiction and resources. They could maintain surveillance on my family for a few days, but long-term protection would require my family's cooperation and understanding of the threat they faced. The problem was that my family still believed I was a criminal, and Marcus was their protector. Agent Chen, my family won't even speak to me right now, let alone listen to warnings about organized crime threats, I said. They think I'm the danger they need protection from. That's why we need to move fast, she replied. We're going to arrange a controlled family meeting where you can present the evidence of Marcus's crimes and explain the real situation. But first we need to secure your family's location and make sure Tony and Carlo don't get to them before we can arrange protection. The next 6 hours were a blur of coordination and tactical planning. FBI surveillance teams took positions around my parents' house, Uncle Derek's construction office, and Emma's apartment complex. Agent Chen contacted local law enforcement to brief them on the situation and request additional patrol coverage in the areas where my family lived and worked. But at 4:30 in the afternoon, everything went wrong. My phone rang with a call from Emma's number, but the voice that answered wasn't my sister's. "Is this Jaws Henderson?" The accent was slight, but unmistakable, the careful pronunciation of someone who'd learned English as a second language. "Who is this?" I demanded, though I already knew the answer. "My name is Tony Ricci. Your sister Emma is spending some time with my associate and me while we discuss a business matter related to Marcus Patterson's outstanding obligations." The kidnapping threat Agent Chen had warned about was now reality. Tony and Carlo had Emma, and they were using her as leverage to force some kind of negotiation. "If you hurt her," I started, but Tony cut me off with a laugh. "Nobody gets hurt if everyone acts reasonably." He said, his accent making the word sound more ominous. "Marcus Patterson owed our organization $800,000 secured by assets from your family's construction business. Marcus is no longer available to fulfill his obligations, so the debt transfers to the collateral. My family had nothing to do with Marcus's debts," I said, gesturing frantically to Agent Chen, who was already coordinating a trace on the call. "They don't even know he was involved with people like you." "That's not our problem," Tony replied coldly. "Business is business. Your sister will remain safe as long as your family signs over ownership of Henderson Construction to settle Marcus's debt. If they refuse, or if you involve law enforcement, your sister will disappear permanently." The line went dead, leaving me staring at my phone while Agent Chen coordinated an emergency response with her team. "We have a partial trace," she said, speaking rapidly into her radio. The call originated from somewhere in the industrial district near the river, but they're probably using burner phones and changing locations regularly. The FBI's tactical response team was already mobilizing, but finding Emma in a city the size of Detroit would take time we didn't have. Tony and Carlo were professionals who understood law enforcement response protocols. They'd chosen their timing and location specifically to maximize their leverage while minimizing their exposure to capture. "Agent Chen, what are my family's options?" I asked. "Even if they signed over the business, there's no guarantee Tony and Carlo would release Emma safely. People like that don't leave witnesses." "You're right," she admitted grimly. "But we can't tell your family that without creating panic that might endanger Emma further. Right now we need to focus on finding her location and preparing a rescue operation." My phone rang again, this time from Dad's number. Jaws. Dad's voice was strained, frightened in a way I'd never heard before. "Two men just came to the house. They said Emma has been kidnapped because of money you stole. They want us to sign papers giving them ownership of the business or they'll kill her." The manipulation was brilliant and terrifying. Tony and Carlo were presenting themselves to my family as debt collectors, pursuing legitimate claims against me, positioning the business transfer as a reasonable solution to a problem I'd created. "Dad, listen to me very carefully," I said. "The men who took Emma are criminals who worked with Marcus Patterson. I didn't steal any money. Marcus was running a fraud operation for an organized crime syndicate, and now they're trying to collect debts by threatening our family." "That's ridiculous," Dad replied, but his voice lacked conviction. "Marcus showed us proof that you stole $300,000. He's been trying to protect us from your criminal behavior." "Dad, Marcus was arrested by the FBI 3 hours ago for fraud, identity theft, and racketeering," I said. "The proof he showed you was forged. He's been planning to steal from our family for years, and Emma's kidnapping is part of his criminal associate's plan to liquidate our assets." The silence on Dad's end stretched for long seconds as he processed information that contradicted everything he'd believed for the past 24 hours. "If Marcus was arrested, how do we know Emma's kidnapping isn't something you arranged to cover your tracks?" he asked finally. The question hit me like a physical blow. Even facing his daughter's kidnapping, Dad's trust in me had been so thoroughly destroyed that he considered me capable of orchestrating violence against my own sister. "Dad, I'm at the FBI field office right now. I'm working with federal agents to find Emma and arrest the people who took her. You can verify everything I'm telling you by calling the number Agent Chen is about to give you." Agent Chen took my phone and spoke directly to my father, providing federal badge numbers and case file information that he could independently verify. The conversation lasted 10 minutes, with Dad asking detailed questions about the evidence against Marcus and the scope of the organized crime investigation. When Agent Chen handed my phone back, Dad's voice had changed completely. "Son, I owe you an apology that I can't even begin to express." He said, his words heavy with shame and regret. "We should have trusted you. We should have investigated before believing Marcus's lies. Now Emma is in danger because we were too proud and too stupid to see what was really happening." "Dad, we'll have time to talk about apologies after we get Emma back safely," I said. "Right now I need you and Mom to pack essential items and go to Uncle Derek's house. The FBI is setting up a command post there, and you'll be safer with federal protection until this is resolved." The next phase of the crisis was about to begin, but for the first time since being turned away from Thanksgiving dinner, my father and I were on the same side. The question was whether we could find Emma before Tony and Carlo decided that holding a hostage was more trouble than it was worth. The real war was just beginning, and Emma's life hung in the balance. Uncle Derek's construction office had been transformed into a makeshift command center, with FBI agents monitoring communications equipment, while tactical teams coordinated search patterns across the industrial district. The irony wasn't lost on me that the family business Marcus had tried to steal was now serving as headquarters for the operation to save Emma's life. Agent Chen spread maps across Derek's conference table marking potential locations where Tony and Carlo might be holding my sister. Red pins indicated abandoned warehouses, blue pins marked construction sites, and yellow pins showed buildings with recent rental activity that could provide temporary hideouts. "The challenge is that they're professionals," Agent Chen explained to my assembled family. "Tony Ricci and Carlo Mendoza have been running kidnapping and extortion operations for Vincent Caruso's organization for 5 years. They understand law enforcement tactics, and they've chosen Detroit specifically because they know the territory." Mom sat in Derek's office chair clutching a cup of coffee that had gone cold hours ago. The transformation in her demeanor since learning the truth about Marcus was heartbreaking. The confident woman who'd stood beside Dad blocking our front door had been replaced by someone consumed with guilt and terror for Emma's safety. "How could we have been so wrong about Marcus?" she whispered, speaking to no one in particular. 20 years of friendship and we never saw what he really was." "Because he's a professional con artist," I said, sitting down beside her. "Mom, identity theft and long-term deception are sophisticated crimes that fool people much more experienced than our family. Marcus studied us for years, learning exactly what to say and do to gain our trust while planning our destruction." Dad paced behind the conference table, his contractor's hands clenched into fists that had no target to strike. "When this is over, when Emma is safe, I'm going to spend the rest of my life making up for what we did to you yesterday." "Dad will have plenty of time to rebuild our relationships after we get Emma back," I replied. "Right now we need to focus on using everything we know about Marcus to figure out where Tony and Carlo might take her." Agent Chen looked up from her communications equipment. "Actually, that's a good point. Marcus Patterson, or whatever his real name is, has been operating in this area for 3 years. He would have needed safe houses, meeting locations, and storage facilities for his criminal activities. Where would he have felt comfortable bringing dangerous associates?" The question sparked something in Uncle Derek's memory. "Marcus helped me bid on a demolition project last spring," he said slowly. "Old automotive parts warehouse down by the river. The project fell through because the owner disappeared, and the property went into legal limbo, but Marcus seemed to know a lot about the building's layout and security systems." Agent Chen immediately pulled up property records on her laptop. "Riverfront Industrial Park Warehouse 17, owned by a shell company that was dissolved 6 months ago. Perfect location for temporary criminal operations because there's no legitimate oversight and minimal traffic from legitimate businesses. Within 30 minutes, FBI surveillance drones confirmed suspicious activity at Warehouse 17. Thermal imaging detected 3 heat signatures inside the building, and electronic surveillance picked up cell phone signals from devices that matched Tony and Carlo's known communication patterns. "We have them," Agent Chen announced. "But we need to approach this carefully. Tactical teams are in position, but a forced entry rescue operation carries significant risks to the hostage." That's when I had an idea that was either brilliant or completely insane. "What if we don't force our way in?" I suggested. "What if we give Tony and Carlo exactly what they want, but on our terms instead of theirs?" Agent Chen raised an eyebrow. "Explain." "Marcus spent months setting up a fake business transfer plan to steal our family's assets." I said, my mind racing through the possibilities. "We have all of his forged documents and fabricated financial records. What if we use those same materials to create a fake business transfer that looks legitimate to Tony and Carlo, but actually leads them into a trap?" The plan I outlined was complex and dangerous, but it had one crucial advantage. It used the criminals' own greed and criminal expectations against them. Tony and Carlo expected to collect a valuable business asset as payment for Marcus's debt. If we could convince them that they were getting Henderson Construction through a legitimate transfer, we could control the time and location of the exchange while ensuring Emma's safety. "It's risky," Agent Chen admitted, "but it gives us the best chance of recovering your sister without a firefight that could get her killed." Dad stepped forward, his voice steady despite the circumstances. "What do you need from us to make this work? We need you to act like a defeated family that's giving up everything to save Emma," I explained. "Tony and Carlo need to believe that you're broken, scared, and willing to sign over the business because you have no other choice. If they suspect this is a trap, they'll kill Emma and disappear." The next 2 hours were spent preparing documents, coordinating with the FBI's technical team, and rehearsing our roles in the deception that would either save Emma's life or get us all killed. At 8 o'clock that evening, Dad called the number Tony Ricci had provided and agreed to the business transfer in exchange for Emma's safe release. "You made the smart choice." Tony's voice carried satisfaction and anticipation. "Tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock, we'll meet at the First National Bank downtown. Your family will sign over ownership of Henderson Construction, and your daughter will be returned unharmed." "How do we know you'll keep your word?" Dad asked, his voice perfectly conveying the desperation of a father who'd lost all leverage. "Because business is business," Tony replied. "Once we have what we came for, your family has no value to us. Killing your daughter would just create unnecessary law enforcement attention." The call ended, leaving us with 16 hours to prepare for an operation that would either end the nightmare or escalate it beyond our worst fears. Agent Chen's tactical team spent the night positioning undercover agents throughout the downtown area, setting up communication intercepts, and preparing contingency plans for multiple scenarios. The bank had been evacuated and replaced with FBI personnel posing as employees, turning the entire building into a controlled environment. But at dawn, everything changed again. My phone rang with another call from Emma's number, but this time it was my sister's voice on the line. Jaws. Emma sounded exhausted, frightened, but alert. "I don't have much time. They think I'm in the bathroom, but I managed to get my phone back for a few minutes." "Emma, are you hurt?" I asked frantically. "Where are you?" "I'm okay, but Jaws, there's something you need to know. Tony and Carlo aren't planning to honor any deal with Dad. I heard them talking. After they get the business documents signed, they're going to kill all of us and disappear with the assets. This was never about releasing me safely." The revelation confirmed my worst fears about dealing with professional criminals. Tony and Carlo had never intended to honor their agreement. The bank meeting was designed to eliminate witnesses while securing the business transfer, leaving them free to liquidate Henderson Construction without interference. "Emma, stay calm and stay safe," I said. "We're coming for you, but I need you to be ready to move when we give you the signal." "What signal?" "When you hear sirens, get as far away from Tony and Carlo as possible. The FBI is going to hit your location with everything they have." Emma's voice dropped to a whisper. "Jaws, I'm so sorry about yesterday. I'm so sorry we didn't trust you. Marcus told me so many lies about you wanting to hurt the family." "Emma, we'll talk about all of that after we get you home safe," I said. "Right now, just focus on surviving the next few hours." The call ended, leaving us with a new understanding of the stakes we were facing. This wasn't just about recovering stolen money or clearing my name anymore. This was about preventing Tony and Carlo from murdering my entire family while stealing everything we'd worked generations to build. The final battle was about to begin, and there would be no second chances. The FBI tactical assault on Warehouse 17 began at 6:30 in the morning, 90 minutes before the scheduled bank meeting. Agent Chen had decided that Emma's intelligence about Tony and Carlo's plans to kill witnesses changed the risk calculations completely. A controlled rescue operation was safer than allowing the criminals to maintain the illusion of a legitimate business transaction. I watched from a command vehicle parked 3 blocks away as teams of federal agents surrounded the building from multiple directions. Thermal imaging confirmed that Emma was being held in a second-floor office, while Tony and Carlo were on the ground floor, apparently preparing for their departure to the bank. Remember, we need at least one of them alive to testify about Vincent Caruso's organization and Marcus Patterson's role in the larger conspiracy, Agent Chen said into her radio. But if they threaten the hostage, neutralize the threat immediately. The breach happened simultaneously from 4 entry points, with flashbang grenades disorienting the targets, while tactical teams secured Emma's location. Within 3 minutes, it was over. "Hostage recovered, suspects in custody," came the voice through Agent Chen's radio. "Emma Henderson is unharmed and asking for her family." The relief that washed over me was so intense it felt like physical pain releasing from every muscle in my body. For 36 hours I'd carried the weight of knowing that my sister's life was in danger because of crimes committed against our family by someone we'd trusted completely. At the hospital where Emma was taken for precautionary medical evaluation, our family reunion was awkward, emotional, and healing all at the same time. The past 2 days had destroyed assumptions we'd held about each other for decades, while revealing truths that none of us had been prepared to face. "Jaws, I don't know how to apologize for what we did to you," Emma said, her voice hoarse from crying. "Marcus told me you were planning to sell the business and cut everyone out of their inheritance. He showed me documents that looked so real, so official. He said you'd been gambling away company money and that he was trying to protect the family from your addiction. Emma Marcus is a professional criminal who's been studying our family for years," I replied, taking her hand. "He knew exactly what lies would turn us against each other, because he'd been watching and learning our fears and insecurities. You weren't stupid or naive. You were targeted by someone who made manipulation his career." Dad cleared his throat, his voice thick with emotion. "Son, I need you to know that blocking you from our door on Thanksgiving was the worst decision I've ever made as a father. We should have talked to you directly instead of believing someone else's version of events. We should have remembered who you are instead of accepting accusations that contradicted everything we knew about your character." The conversation continued for hours, with each family member acknowledging their role in the crisis while working to understand how Marcus had manipulated our relationships so successfully. The healing process would take months, but the foundation of trust was being rebuilt through honest communication and shared commitment to protecting each other in the future. 3 weeks later, Marcus Patterson, whose real name turned out to be Michael Reynolds, was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison for fraud, racketeering, identity theft, and conspiracy charges. The investigation Agent Chen led had uncovered a criminal network spanning 8 states, with dozens of victims who'd lost their businesses or life savings to sophisticated financial predators. Vincent Caruso received 25 years for organizing the criminal enterprise, while Tony Ricci and Carlo Mendoza were sentenced to 15 years each for kidnapping, extortion, and conspiracy charges. The entire organization was dismantled, with assets seized and distributed to victims who'd lost money to their various schemes. Henderson Construction not only survived the crisis, but emerged stronger than before. Dad implemented new financial controls and oversight procedures that made the company virtually immune to future fraud attempts. He also made me chief financial officer and gave Uncle Derek a partnership stake that reflected his decades of loyalty and support. But the most significant change was in our family's communication and decision-making processes. We'd learned that trust without verification was dangerous, that family loyalty required asking hard questions when situations didn't make sense, and that protecting each other meant staying connected even when external pressures tried to divide us. 6 months after the arrest, Tyler Morrison moved back from Chicago to help me start a consulting business that specialized in helping family-owned companies protect themselves from financial predators. We called it Shield Financial Security, and our first client was a construction company in Ohio that had been targeted by one of Vincent Caruso's associates. The work was deeply satisfying because it transformed our painful experience into protection for other families who might face similar threats. Every business we helped secure was a family that wouldn't have to endure the betrayal, manipulation, and danger that had nearly destroyed us. 1 year later at our Thanksgiving dinner, the conversation was very different from the previous year's catastrophe. Emma had married a teacher from the local high school, someone she'd met through friends, rather than through a manipulative criminal. Uncle Derek had expanded his construction business into commercial real estate development, creating jobs for dozens of local families. Mom and Dad had started a non-profit organization dedicated to educating families about financial fraud prevention, speaking at community centers and business associations about the warning signs of manipulation and the importance of independent verification of financial claims. During dinner, as we shared what we were grateful for, I reflected on how the worst betrayal of our lives had ultimately led to greater strength, deeper relationships, and a meaningful mission to protect other families from similar threats. I'm grateful that we learned the truth about Marcus before he could destroy us completely, I said when my turn came. I'm grateful that Emma survived her kidnapping safely. I'm grateful that we've grown closer as a family by working through this crisis together. And I'm grateful that we've found ways to help other families avoid the pain we experienced. Emma raised her wine glass in a toast. To families that stick together even when everything seems to be falling apart. To the importance of asking questions when something doesn't feel right. And to second chances that make us stronger than we were before. The toast was echoed around the table, a family that had been nearly destroyed by professional manipulation, but had emerged with deeper bonds, clearer communication, and a shared purpose that made our relationships more meaningful than they'd ever been. As I looked around the table at the people I loved most in the world, I realized that Marcus Patterson's greatest crime wasn't stealing money or framing me for theft. His greatest crime was underestimating the power of a family that chooses to fight for each other when the truth finally emerges. Trust must be earned and verified, but genuine love can survive even the most sophisticated deceptions when people choose accountability, growth, and protection over pride and assumptions. Sometimes the worst betrayals lead to the greatest transformations, and the families that survive together become stronger than they ever imagined possible. Have you ever experienced betrayal from someone you trusted completely? And how did you rebuild those relationships afterward? The journey from destruction to healing isn't easy, but it's possible when families choose to fight for each other instead of against each other. If this story resonated with you, please like this video to help other families who might be facing similar challenges. Subscribe to hear more stories about overcoming betrayal and protecting the people you love. And please share this with anyone who needs to understand that trust must be verified, but true families can survive even the most devastating deceptions. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and remember that the strongest families are often forged through the fires of their greatest trials.